This is episode number 24 of Mini Ice Age Conversations. And today I have a follow-up interview with Rick Monday, former radio personality with ICRT Radio in Taipei, Taiwan. We had a conversation almost exactly 1 year ago, talking about the intensification of the grand solar minimum. This next half hour is a follow-up 1 year later to talk about the changes and the intensification that have occurred, and also give you a crystal ball looking out into the next year or two of changes that could be happening across our planet in terms of weather, agricultural commodities prices, the economy, and a few other little surprises for you as well. I think you're going to learn a lot and see how the state of our environment is moving as we intensify into the 400-year cycle of the sun's low activity.
David Dubine is producer of Adapt 2030, Mini Ice Age 2015 to 2035 channel on YouTube. He's also the host of Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and SoundCloud. Now, Dave, we talked a year ago. Do you still believe there's such a thing as the grand solar minimum?
Actually, I do. Since we spoke last, there's been so much more scientific information from the astrophysicists. There was a new report released just 2 days ago showing the intensity and how quickly we're going to descend into the grand solar minimum. That was from Zarkov, Shepard, and Zarkova. We are absolutely going to descend much faster than they descended into the Maunder minimum in the 1600s. We're going to have to go back into the late 1400s to find something that will be the same intensity that we're about to repeat. But instead of spending 20 to 30 years slowly coming into this mini ice age, it's going to hit us in 2 years. It's going to be that abrupt, that swift of an intensity change, pegging to the compression of our atmosphere coming up late August of this year, 2017. You're going to start to see our atmosphere, our environment, conditions come unwound, literally come unwound with, wow, I can't believe there's that much lightning. Look at those massive feet-deep floods, not feet deep, but 10 feet deep floods coming through. Snowstorms that'll drop 20 feet of snow at a time. This is going to be the new normal starting right now.
Now, we're recording this on May the 19th, 2017. Last year, you said that there's going to be more clouds caused by cosmic rays. There's going to be more snow, more rain around the world. And again, this is happening by cosmic rays. This is completely separate from the greenhouse effect.
Correct. Now, the greenhouse effect and the cosmic ray effect are the exact same end result. So when people are talking about global warming and evaporation from the oceans, warmer surface temperatures causing more evaporation, which create more clouds, well, the end result is more clouds, which can also be explained by cosmic ray increases when our magnetosphere weakens because of the solar output going into what's called the cold sun.
So we should be able to look at a news channel, CNN, Fox News, BBC, and see the weather reports of more snow, more rain around the world. What proof do you have that you've seen just from watching the news?
Well, just even in the last, say, 6 weeks, all-time record snowpack in California approaching 60 feet or more this last winter, which will allow summer skiing all the way through the season. They're going to keep the ski resorts open all through the summer. Record floods down South America, everywhere from Colombia to Peru. Record rains across the deserts of the world. Deserts across this planet are blooming because of record rainfall. Record rainfall across the Middle East. Record floods through Eastern Europe. Record floods through Central Asia. So much water, it turned China into an inland sea for a couple of weeks. The rain amounts are absolutely going off the charts here. Australia record floods as well. So you can see this if you look in the news. They put it on for just a couple seconds. It's a by note in the rest of the world's Syrian invasion or what else might be going on. But the information's there if you look for it, and that'll be the proof that you're looking for. I've done videos on almost every one of these topics you're talking about right now.
All right, those are linked to at the bottom of this. These weather and climate changes are going to mean crop losses and food price risings. So as we stand today on the 19th of May, 2017, how stable is the food growing season around the world?
Well, just last week, they had the latest blizzard ever recorded in the United States that took away 40% of the wheat crop of the U.S. in a single storm. They lost 200,000 plus acres of rice in Arkansas. They lost 70% of the fruit in the EU and the vegetables as well. There was so much rain in California they can't even plant vegetables, especially there's lettuce losses. A lot of the fruit along the east coast of the United States has also been ruined when the flowers had bloomed due to a warm spring, but then the Arctic vortex rolled back down on all the plants again. And I think the minimum right now, the minimum losses are 60% of all the fruit and orchards, trees, berries, etc. across the United States. So we're starting to see this everywhere. Out-of-season snows and floods in Australia. New Zealand, with its second subtropical typhoon this year, they get one in maybe 50 to 75 years, but they've had two this year alone. So there's all these things that are starting to add up. And if you're looking for the mini ice age indicators, this is exactly what I was looking for, specifically the first major crop losses on a continental scale. The price of wheat rose to all-time record limit stops during this storm, and cattle trading as well hit limit up stops 3 days in a row, and then they also just hit limit up stop trading on cotton pricing. The food price rises are at least 30% more, and everybody that keeps writing me back on my channel is saying, yeah, you're right, there's shortages here, the potato crisis in Japan, $12 bags of potato chips. Something that cost you $2 last year is now $8 for fruit in the United States. Same in Europe. It's happening everywhere.
David Dubine's been studying what he calls a grand solar minimum, and today he's saying that's going to bring about a mini ice age. Well, not just you, I guess scientists are also calling it the grand solar minimum, and it's going to bring about a mini ice age. Now, Dave, that's big news. It's going to affect food prices and the lifestyle of people around the world. Why aren't governments warning their citizens about what's going to happen?
There are some governments, Russia, Pakistan, and when they do come out with these warnings, everybody laughs them off and go, oh, it's just Pakistan, oh, it's just Russia, well, what are they talking about? But you have to think, to keep the continuity of government and the continuity of society together, if you look back in history, every time one of these events comes, it absolutely changed dynasties, emperors, kingdoms. It has a huge effect on food production, which is the main thing that people need to stay alive. You can stop driving your car and you can take public transportation. That's going to affect you and make it a nuisance for your life. Higher prices for delivery are going to add on costs in the supermarket. That doesn't affect 100% of the people. It does to a point of the delivery costs. But when it comes down to every single human being on the planet be affected by the food price rises, and we're not talking about a 5 or 10, 20% rise. We're talking like double, triple, 5 times the pricing if available in the future. So let me go back and describe to you what happened during the Kansas blizzard just a week and a half ago. During that time, if there's so much world stock in surplus, how did the world price of wheat rise 8% in a single day because of a single storm coming across Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma and wiping out part of the wheat crop? It wasn't really part, it was 40% plus, and they're still assessing the damage. But you're telling me one storm in the United States raised the entire world's wheat price 8%. What's going to happen next year when it intensifies? You know, they're behind planting in Alberta. They've left over 1 million acres unharvested due to flooding and still snow covered, and the plants are damaged, so the canola crop's 1 million acres behind. Up in Canada, specifically Alberta, they got just snow in British Columbia yesterday. It's still snowing across the Rocky Mountains. Record snows in California again in the Sierra Nevadas. We got these cold fronts rolling down. Arctic cold front going to punch through Europe again, and whatever trees are out right now, they're going to absolutely be very damaged by the cold that's coming next week through Europe. It's going to be cyclonic winds across the UK, landing into France, Germany, 100-mile-an-hour winds. I don't know how good they are for fruit trees and orchards.
So it sounds like the first food that we're going to stop eating is going to be bread if the wheat is being affected, right? Sandwiches are going to disappear from our diet?
Not at all. They're just going to cost you more money, which comes back to the original question. Why don't governments want to tell the citizens what's really going on? Our economy is based on you continuing to go to work, continuing to consume at a regular level, continuing to pay your bills, continuing to leave your money in the bank, continuing to invest in the stock market or bonds or treasuries or whatever you do. When you start pulling that money out, that fractional reserving, that's the base of our banking system, for every dollar you pull out, they need to take away 99, at least in the United States. It's only 1% now. They need to pull out $99 off the economy because your $1 got pulled out. Now that's fine if it's just 1 or 2 or 100 people. Go to the bank one day and take all their cash out. But if the people really knew what's coming, it wouldn't be 100 or 200 people. It would be like 20, 50, 100 million people pulling their money out to prepare for this. They're going to go buy tools. They're going to get hand water pumps. They're going to do whatever it is, the necessities to grow food, which is going to be a lifestyle change. You are going to have to grow your food, whether it be on a building rooftop in a city, windowsill gardening, or if you have your own home with your own property. It's going to be part of your required lifestyle in the future marching forward. They ran out of vegetables so much that there was a vegetable shortage across Europe for 3 weeks where there were no veggies, especially the lettuces, the leafier types of vegetable, lettuces, spinach, so much that they actually had to try to import from Mexico over to Europe because their supermarket shelves were bare across the UK, Spain, France, and Germany.
So again, I would stop eating bread. I can't grow wheat, and I can't harvest it. Just sandwiches would just disappear from my diet. So I guess rice and noodles also will disappear from future diets for the normal person. All right, if you have a lot of money, you can still pay those increased prices, but I don't know if I want to put 50% of my income into eating wheat-based foods.
Yeah, this will come with a lifestyle change. It's going to be difficult for some. I don't know how adaptable you are, but the name of the game moving forward is adaptability and changing on a dime to the situations that evolve. So what about this? Now, Rick, I'm going to ask you the substitution question myself. If you can't get the wheat, it's too expensive, wheat-based products, what other crops or what other types of food would you switch to? What would you substitute in your diet? That's a personal question. I mean, if you're not going to eat wheat and you're not going to eat rice, you're going to have to substitute something else for a carbohydrate or some protein base. So what are you going to switch to?
Or just to fill up? Well, you would probably have to be the bulkier vegetables, such as broccoli or okra, things that have apples, things that have the most fiber in them, I'm thinking. We're going to have a change in people's appearance. I think we're going to have a thinner population in the future. They're not going to be eating as much, junk food. They're going to be eating food for survival.
Yeah, I agree. If we look back in history when it comes back, especially the Maunder minimum, which is the most famous and the most documented grand solar minimum, which occurred in, had heavily written reports in Europe specifically because it was in the 1600s. In the United States, they just landed on the East Coast. Thanksgiving was all based on this, where the Native Americans had helped them through this rough winter that almost decimated the settlers that went over there because they went and landed in a cold area during a grand solar minimum and were almost completely wiped out along with the native population, which was struggling to stay alive at that point. Warmer areas, say 20 degrees, 25 degrees north latitude, down to the equator, south or north, whatever it is, in that band will be very little affected. That's where the new breadbaskets are going to emerge from.
Where at? Where's the new breadbaskets going to emerge?
Myanmar, Indonesia, Sahel in Africa. That place is turning more green with all the increased rainfall. That's why the Chinese are building rail lines way out into the desert. They see the same thing. They have 3,000 to 5,000 years of written records of their explorers and also what the climatic conditions were as well before Zhonghua went out there and got the exploration going. What about the traders on the Silk Road? All right, there's a lot of written records on climatic conditions through the thousands of years. So they know that it gets green in this desert when the weather changes and it's a drought in Beijing or a drought in Heilongjiang. Well, it's going to be lush and green in Central Asia because the weather pattern's shifted. Tibet's going to be more rain as well. Oh, yeah, we've seen the floods of Tibet, which is strange.
As we record this, we are May the 19th, 2017. How soon do you see big changes in our weather pattern?
Well, we're starting to see that right now. It's not when it's happening as we speak. And one of the triggers I was looking for was the first continental loss of a globally traded commodity crop. And that would be the wheat loss that we just incurred. Literally, 8% rise in a couple of days on one single storm. Now, this is going to intensify. The numbers from Canada aren't out yet, but they're not looking good. Even the Wheat Association and the canola growers are talking about how horrendous the conditions are for planting. And also these massive floods across Missouri, etc., through the United States have just delayed planting. If they do get a crop in the ground, it's going to come up and be tinier. And then if we do a repeat of the moderate minimum when these onset of winter comes a month and a half earlier, they're not going to get a crop. This is the same thing in Europe that's happening too. These new cold fronts that just decimated everything these last month and a half, they're trying to replant. Now, will they have time, and when will the cold fronts come back again? South America, they've just been flood after flood after flood. And Brazil, currently, they lost 60% of their coffee crop. Taking a look also at their corn and Argentinian wheat, dumped 9 inches of rain on the wheat crop when they're trying to harvest right now. So the rosy pictures for all these forecast harvests around the planet suddenly are being decreased and pulled back, not by tons, but millions and millions and millions of tons. Just as forecasts that came out and the tally of durum wheat from Canada just 2 days ago, and I think it was the 16th or 15th, they pulled back the durum wheat 1.1 million tons production. That's actually in the silos. They just couldn't harvest it. It's stranded in the field, rotting right now.
So we're looking at a decrease in the Earth's population.
That'll be one of the effects as well. There's a lot of opportunity, but when you're talking about the weather effects, when is this going to happen? It's happening right now, but it's at a fluffy, very light stage, if you will. And we talk about intensity ramp up. What you're seeing currently is a light version of what's about to happen. So Zarkova, Zarkov, Shepard, they put out some forecasts, and if you follow the hemispheric magnetic rotations on the sun, which they based all of their forecasts off when it gets into a canceling wave, which onsets its grand solar minimum due to decreased activity in the sun, we start to see the intense ramp up coming at August or after of this year, 2017. We're going to see a doubling or tripling of the intensity of the ramp up through 2018. And then from that split that they show from 2018 to 19, so it's literally a 5 or 6 time up, which we'll experience. So we're looking at a 15 to 20 times increase in instability in the weather by 2020.
All right, so it sounds like we need to sit down and record again after August to see what changes have happened.
Yeah, August 2017 is when the actual changes I'm talking about with the ramp up of intensity will be visible across the planet. People are going to be like, it can't be snowing in the summer. It can't be cyclonic winds going across a continent. It can't be 6 feet of hail dumping in a place, burying people where they need rescued because they can't walk fast enough to escape the hail coming down, which has happened in several places. I would say more Christmas revamp would be better because the August to December is specifically the window of intensity ramp up. Winter's going to arrive early, and then it'll be followed by heat again somewhere in December, and you'd be like, whoa, those seasons are all mixed up. First it froze at 10 below zero back in September, and then it snowed all through October, and now it's back to summer again in December. This is the exact same effect. The end result is the exact same. The global warming proponents will say you're going to get these out of seasons that'll be hot in December, January, and it'll be cold in October, and we see the same exact end result from 2 different roads coming in. I'm still saying galactic cosmic rays, because they're forecasting a 19% increase of GCRs coming over this next solar cycle. Now, Heinrich Svensmark, that movie The Cloud Mystery, and also CERN, C-E-R-N, the Research Institute in Switzerland, Cloud Project number 6, they have verified time and time again these cosmic rays cause more cloud cover. Now, this cloud cover is going to be around 15,000 to 18,500 feet. What we've seen of these mega floods so far coming forward in these last year and a half, these mega floods, and you have noticed the ramp up in flooding and flash flooding and blizzards, etc. This is nothing. We're going to add another 19% on top of what that was a 12% rise that's induced all this inclement weather across the planet. We're looking at 19% more of those cosmic rays. We're looking at 20% more cloud cover minimum. Also, the temperatures are going to be decreasing, so I'm going to forecast and absolutely say that this year, 2017, will not be the warmest year ever. It will not be. By the time we tally through December, the temperature will have dropped on this planet more. And then all the people who are promoting global warming based on CO2, they're going to have to come up with a different explanation of why it's cooling and not warming based on the projections. That's going to be a fun day. I want to see those news releases.
Dave, I'm fairly pessimistic after listening to you when you talk about the changes in the climate and what it's going to do to food loss. But you're telling me that I'm a little bit too pessimistic, that there are opportunities, especially for local farmers.
Well, local people in general, this is going to be the biggest opportunity. We've gone from local, which it used to be 150 years ago or 100 years ago. Most things were produced locally within a 25-mile radius of where you live, consumed there, bought there, sold there, traded there. And then we got into this globalization fervor, if you will, where we started producing things thousands of miles away, 5,000, 10,000 miles away is where you get something now. As the economy starts to weaken, it's not going to be like it is today. We're not going to be busing in or training in or trucking in, whatever transportation mode you're using, barging in, container shipping in, something for our food production. It's going to be more of a local solution to this. Now, one thing, local production of food is going to be a part of your daily, lifestyle change. If you know how to install LED vertical grow light systems in trays to produce microgreens, if you're an installer of that, if you're an investor, these defunct shopping malls, which are going out of business as we speak, retail spending in the United States are shuttering malls left, right, and center. Strip malls are perfect. Buy those things up super cheap at bankruptcy and then get in there and fit those things out with LED grow systems. This is what we're going to transition to. Now, the installation, the maintenance, the delivery system itself in the local region, how about drying that? How about preserving it? Turning it into a powder for a longer shelf life. Long-term food storage. There are so many opportunities going forward with this.
So that would mean that we could grow a leafy green vegetable, freeze dry it, mix it then with water, and we'd actually be drinking our diet for our vitamins and nutrients?
That's a very big possibility. That's been discussed many a time. Because powderized substances can be transported and packed more efficiently than fresh greens. I mean, you take a pound of, let's say, kale. Okay, when it's fresh, you can dehydrate that all the way down. Or if you're talking a kilogram, you can dry it down to 100 grams, turn it into a powder, and then suddenly you're using 1/10 of the space for delivery. And the economy is going to be tweaked anyway, so a lot of the shipping companies are going to go out of business because these trans-shipping from continent to continent for things that were not going to be so valuable today. You're not going to be looking for a new plasma team or a plasma screen TV. You're going to be looking for tools, seeds, things to help you get through this.
Well, what are some of the hardiest crops, something that will be able to survive a change in climate?
Some of these colder weather vegetables that are in hardy zones that can shift between 2 or 3 zones. They can be grown in extreme cold all the way down to, say, semi-tropical. So lettuces, kales, these kind of things are what you're going to be looking at. Cabbages. I put a whole huge list on my website, oilseedcrops.org. On the right side, there's a full info list. How about the wilds? Don't forget about the wilds. This is something that is so overlooked. The wild vegetation is a food source, a vitamin source, and a nutrient source that most people have forgotten.
All right, what is a wild vegetation? What's an example of that?
Nettles. Those are incredibly high in vitamin C. Morning glory leaves. Any types of these things. They're free. You have a free supermarket out in nature if you just know how to look at it. How about mango leaves for those in the tropics? Those really nice, tender mango leaves. People eat so many things that we overlook and go, oh, I wouldn't touch that, because your grandparents didn't teach you, or they forgot to teach you what is edible from the forest. That might be to the point where you could go out and harvest everything you need for your nutrient source. Like the Native American Indians, they wouldn't actually plant these things. What they would do is, where something was naturally growing, they would clear out the bush or the vegetation to allow that natural spot to be larger for that plant species already growing there, because it chose that spot to grow. So apparently the accounts of the early persons who were trying to settle there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of square miles of literally just walk through pick forests that were gardens for the Native Americans, and they had taken hundreds of years and hundreds of generations to put it in such a state where the blueberry plants grew there. They would just clear away the other vegetation to allow the blueberries to actually spread themselves. If the nettles grew there, great. That was their vegetable source for vitamin C. If this grew there, X, Y, Z grew there, that's what they did. They spread out nature so those things could naturally get a stronger foothold.
So meat's going to be very expensive. The world is naturally going to be turning more vegetarian.
Correct. As cattle feed gets more expensive, I believe one of the first things to go would be beef production. That'll be one of the first things. And I know it's a huge cornerstone of the economy in the United States, Texas, all these feedlots, feed houses. But this, it's going to be, if you're going to go short on something, first of all, the beef prices are going to skyrocket. So not going short on that, but in the future, as the grains get too expensive to get into that whole feed loop of the chain, probably another 2 to 3 years from now, the cattle production will be so low because the grain that would be used to feed cattle is going to be diverted to feed humans. So they'll be like, no. You're not going to spend and let a year's worth of crop that could feed 12 people go to feed one cow. And that's the averages. To raise one cow, it takes the amount of corn that could feed 12 human beings for an entire year to raise one cow.
Then that also will mean that people are going to be moving towards the coast because they're going to be dependent more on fish or seaweed that's grown in the oceans. You're not going to want to live in the middle of the United States, are you? Away from plant life that's grown in the ocean.
Yeah, or that, or you're going to be needing to live right near rail lines. I see, and a lot of people have been talking about the resurgence of the rail lines. Warren Buffett sold almost everything last year. What did he rebuy? He's the second largest holder of rail lines in the United States now. So they believe as these traditional systems of international shipping and trading go by the way by 2020 or so, with massive corrections, the valuation of what we consider valuable on our planet is about to take a hit. Things are going to go more local again. So just like specifically the United States and Europe, there's a lot of rail traffic. This will be the new thing. The new boom towns will be along the rail routes. And talking about opportunity, digital currency is going to take over when the stock market and the valuation of currencies across the planet
goes
into flux.
What's a digital currency?
The most famous one you probably heard of is Bitcoin. But there's also others that are following, like Ethereum Classic, Monero. Ethereum had a fork, and then it turned into Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. Now, when I first was looking at Ethereum, less than a year ago it was $15. Now it's at $105. Bitcoin, when I was also looking at it, was around $650. Now it's at $1,900, and that's today of May
19th, 2017.
That's right. So when I looked at it this morning, it was $1,920. Those are huge gains. So the people who know what they know are slowly starting to move part of their holdings into these digital currencies because these will be preserved capital value. It's just a belief system anyway. I mean, almost all the economy is nothing more than your confidence in the system. So the confidence is going to go away from paper money, from central banks when they realize that countries aren't going to be trading and making things and we're not going to be buying things like it used to be. So the value, the confidence in those currencies is going to shift into something else. So it'll probably be more physical products or physical things that you can barter, sell, trade, use to make other things. An LED light is going to be way more valuable than, let's say, a pair of tennis shoes because with that LED light you can grow something indoors. These, I believe, the digital currency is absolutely at the lowest price it's ever going to be. And the way it's going to be moving forward. The strike price for Bitcoin, for example, you'll know if I'm on the right track. So we're talking right now, within 12 months will be $13,000 for a Bitcoin. You can mark that from today. Mark 12 months from today going into May. 13 grand for a Bitcoin and over $1,000 for Ethereum. But to go back, I don't believe that you should invest in anything that you don't want to. I believe that investment potentials are going to be different for every single person. Whether it be a physical product, how good are you at growing your own foods? How good are you at drying something? How good are you coordinating resources with other people? These old handcraft that we used to do blacksmiths, leathersmiths, bakers, anybody who can refine a food product into a more of a processed product, outside the grandiose, huge, giant factories that we're using today. Can you walk down into a silo and load a truck up with 10 tons of wheat and bring it back somewhere and then start to use that? I don't know. We're going to go more local, that's for sure. And the rail lines are going to be the pivot point for the locality, consumption, and production on it. We're going to shrink back into the continental scale, and we're going to shrink back into the city size again. We are at the expansion point with globalization as far as we're going to go. It's not going any further than this. It's going to start to contract back into the local consumption again.
And I do thank you so much for spending your time with Rick and I listening to this interview. Hope it gives you a glimpse into the future so you can better prepare. The mainstream media is not putting these stories out because it goes against the agenda of global warming, and I'm still at a loss to understand why they keep pushing this warming when there's obvious signs of cooling, and regardless of what's happening, our agriculture is going to be affected. At the very minimum, they should at least be talking about your food price rises in the future. But again, thanks for watching. And our next episode, I'll be with Lee Wheelbarger once again. We're talking about the intensification and the changes in the atmosphere, specifically electrical phenomenon, these downbursts that we're experiencing globally, and these record floods and hail events. I'll see you on the next episode.